time and everything's going to plan. So it's me, Roy Johnson of Sandler, and Matthew Dashby Hughes, my partner in crime. Except Matthew's brought a little bit more to the party than he normally does. Matthew?
It's always nice to over-deliver. And this morning I thought I'd bring a little friend. Don't know if you've heard of him. His name's COVID. He's a charming little fellow. He's been getting around a lot. I'm going to be honest. I'm not a fan.
Matthew? Not a fan. Don't blame you. So if all of a sudden he starts burbling more crap than usual, blame the COVID.
Yeah, I think I might just stick to that excuse for the general use, to be fair. Yes, yeah. It's not great. The brain fog is not good. More to the point, if I do start coughing and spluttering, I might just mute my mic for 5 seconds. So apologies in advance to everybody for that.
That's all right. So we're going to test you today. We're going to test you because we're going to be talking about what is your budget for a sale. And I've had a few people sort of ping me, go, what the hell do you mean by that? Which sort of demonstrates to me how alien this sort of discussion is. I'm not claiming that I know all the answers on this. My head is just full of various opinions. But what is your budget for sale? Because we all know, we're all interested in when we're looking at prospects that they have a budget to purchase from us, even if a lot of the times they're not very happy about sharing that with us. But do we actually have a budget for dealing with them? And experience tells me no. Of course, the question here is, should we? And I don't really know the answer. But what's your opinion on this?
Well, having come from a background where I worked in a lot of much more marginal businesses, where the difference between profit and loss was won and lost in very, very tight areas. I guess looking at the cost of client acquisition or the cost of customer acquisition as a key metric is something that certainly is much more of a focus in marginal businesses. The less marginal your business, the more you tend to have sales processes which are somewhat more delusional. Shall I say? Is that harsh, or is that the COVID speaking? I don't know. But yeah, basically, you end up in this place where they love me. We need to have at least 7 touch points, or 12 touch points, or 24 touch points, or infinite number of touch points before we actually end up doing any business together.
I love that. Isn't that just an excuse for breaking bread?
Right. Absolutely. So this is the kind of the delusional speak that you hear from salespeople who are either badly trained or badly managed, usually both. And it's not their fault. They've been put into an environment where they're under pressure to hit numbers and all the rest of it. And so what they do is they generate an awful lot of smoke and not a lot of heat. And instead of focusing on what's really important, which is this cost of client acquisition and so forth, they tend to spend all their time on relationship building and breaking bread. And I am deliberately doing this thing with my rabbit ears fingers because it's horrible.
It's horrible.
It is horrible. But look, in those kind of more marginal businesses where actually you feel the pain of it a lot more acutely, you tend to be much more aware of what the cost of client acquisition actually needs to be. Does that mean that they're always as effective as they could be and should be at budgeting for it? No, frankly, they're not. But it's a really, really powerful and quite sobering metric when you look at it and you actually work it out properly. Because ultimately, you've got 4 elements that you can deal with in your cash flow. So let's put our accountant's hat on for a minute here. And I don't give accountants too many kind of little nods here, but I think the truth is in the numbers. You usually tell what the truth is using words, but sorry, accountants. But the truth is there in the numbers if you know how to read it. And one of the key things here is that there's plenty of profitable businesses out there that have died because of lack of cash. And one of the things that you have to
Oh, he's frozen.
Marketing cycle is
Oh,
usually
hang on, Matthew.
overlong.
Hang on, mate. Hang on, mate. Just go back a bit. We lost you for a few seconds. I thought that was genius what you was about to say. We talked about businesses die from lack of cash. Go from there again.
Okay. Oh, sorry. Did the microphone cut out?
You just froze. Froze.
There we go. Right. That I'll blame COVID or technology, one or the other.
Yes.
Yeah. Basically, you're looking at cash flow. So you've got 4 elements to your cash flow. You've got your sales and marketing cycle. You've got your manufacturing production cycle. You've got your delivery cycle, so the time it takes you to actually do the service or the product, and then you've got your billing cycle, right? The first one of those things, the sales and marketing cycle, is something that's within your control. If you're in the sales and marketing space, if you are part of the business development process, then you've got to manage that cycle. You've got to reduce the amount of time that's in there. So you've got to focus on what your actual cost of client acquisition is. So it's fundamental. What's your views on that?
I think one of the things with client acquisition is we can do a lot of chasing and not know why we're chasing. And I think one of the important things from a management point of view is when we talk about budget here, and budget is more than just money. Budget is time, resource, and also what you are not doing while you're chasing someone along who won't buy from you. And when do you know that this thing is not going to happen? And when do you know when to elegantly dismount this horse? And I think without a process in place, an understanding for this type of typical thing, this is how we run. And if you're looking at a 3-call close, a 4-call close, how many ever call it is, your first thought would be, how can we reduce that?
Yeah.
And your second thought is, have I bust my budget for this opportunity? And I think selling precisely and understanding why you're doing something and working on that basis is very important. And if we just keep on chasing and going breaking bread and just visiting and not knowing why we're doing it and what the next stage is, or if this thing even has life is, because we've talked about it before, Matthew, 80% of business decisions is no change. 80% of selling or buying decisions is no change. And it could be 75%, it could be 70%, but it's just one of these things where the percentage is high enough that we have to work out, are they going to change or not? And do we put them in a nurture campaign? Do we wind down the amount of time we spend to them? Do we put them in a different cadence of working with them? Not for the project or the opportunity acquisition, but for building the relationship. And again, relationship is great, but people buy on pain. They don't buy on how much they love you. I mean, later maybe, but people buy on the pain that they are feeling. And if you don't know how to find their real pain for doing something different, because salespeople are change agents. If they cannot find a reason to change, what are they doing there? But from a manager's point of view, you've got to be able to look at something and say, have we busted the budget on this one? Is this really worth it? Oh, Danny's come up with a, we're not going to spend too much on this, but here we go. Hello, Danny. Nice to see you, mate. Let's just show that. Probably right. Connection has COVID.
Yeah,
that's great contribution. What's happened here?
Social comments. Here, there you go. Look at that.
There we go. We have to know where we are in a sales cycle and why we're doing what we're doing. And I think this is where it can sometimes get missed. We don't know what our budget for a sale is. We don't know when it doesn't make sense to carry on. There is nothing that you can grab hold of, an objective metric for a sale. And I think before we go and chase anything or work with anything, we have to have that documented somewhere to say, what are we willing to invest to get to a point of no? Now, that's a point of me saying no or them saying no. What are we willing to invest? And I think we talk about reticular activation and recognizing it when it's happening. If we know what that budget for a sale is, both cost, time, energy, resources, maybe other people in the company, we're then very much focused on getting the best out of everything. If we just make it that we visit these people who are never going to buy from us, or contact these people that are never, ever going to buy from us on a monthly basis because it makes us feel good and fills up our diary, that's doing the company a disservice. And that's where the manager, their leader, can coach them to be more effective at what they do.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, you've got, it's almost a cliche. It's so well known that it's on average 5 times more to acquire a customer than it is to retain an existing one. Okay, so in terms of the cost, so clearly there are great ways of measuring these things, and certainly in businesses I've been in previously that I mentioned before, where it is somewhat more marginal, the cost of customer acquisition, we call it customer acquisition rather than client acquisition because of the type of business we were in. It was much more of a transactional sale than it was a transformational sale, hence it being much more marginal in terms of the profitability. So you calculate it, basically you get all of your sales and your marketing costs, and then you divide that total costs by the total number of customers acquired to generate a notional cost of customer acquisition. Then what you do is you take the average lifetime value of a customer, so how much on average a customer spends with you, or if you're going to be really granular about it, the amount of gross profit you make over the lifetime of a customer, and you divide that by the average customer cost, so you can say what a customer is actually worth to you financially. I've just done that again, but there you go, whatever.
I think it's the COVID kicking in. Just stop it.
Yeah, I'll blame that. But basically, there's 3 things that come out of this. There's 3 things that come out of it when you go through this thought process. The maths isn't that difficult to do. I mean, sales managers or marketing managers who are trying to hide from you will tell you that it's difficult to do the maths. It's not. It's really not. Even I can do the maths, and I'm full of COVID. So there you go. It's not hard. But 3 things come out of it: reduce, increase, and expand. Okay, so you've got to reduce your sales cycle. Look at how you can shorten it. Look at how you can shorten it in a way that is both ethical and honorable, so that actually it's better, wastes less of your time, but of course it wastes less of their time as well, which generates automatically a great customer experience or potential customer experience, because not all of them are going to turn to customers. Even the prospects feel like they were well treated. Okay, but that leads you into number 2, which is increase. And that's increase your retention. Because if right from minute 1, from the very first touch point they have with your sales force, actually they feel like they're being treated with equal business stature, they feel like they're being treated well, that actually they're being listened to, they're being heard and understood, that actually you get them, you're going to increase your retention. So that's where your increase comes. Number 2, increase. And then the third thing is expand, which is expand your customers, because again, you can massively increase your profits by through expansion. So get a couple of numbers for you, because it's always nice to have numbers. If you can increase your retention of clients by 5%, profits go up on average between 25 and 90%, depending on the business.
Well, business.
That's pretty huge. I mean, 25% is big. 90% is really, really big. That's quite a lot. And then the other number, which is worth having, if you can expand your clients, you know what your conversion rate is on average across like multiple different sectors? On average, the conversion rate is around about 70% when you're selling to people who are already buying off you. 70% conversion rate versus on average for cold outreach, more like 5%. I'm just saying, it's a lot easier if you're actually prospecting people who already know you.
It's interesting that 70% you said actually matches up pretty well with 80%. People buying from you, 70% more chance. It sort of rings true when you talk about 80% of sales or 80% of opportunities end up in no change. But I've got to pull you up on a subject, because I hear this standard knocked about. It costs 5 times as much to acquire a new client than keep an old one. I think people hide behind that as a reason for over servicing. And appropriate servicing is correct, but I would argue that actually I would prefer to spend 5 times more getting a great client than keeping a dog with fleas that I might already have. Not all clients are great, right? And so this should not be a across the board thing. We've got to decide: do we want to keep them? Do they make sense for our business?
Yes.
And I think this is like a rule of physics. Every client you have will eventually leave you. Now, it might not be this week or next week, and certainly getting more out of an existing client is very important. But if we don't hunt down and work and find and prospect new clients who can bring us the right sort of business, eventually we'll be out of business. So, and certainly, I don't worry about this 5 times more. It's probably right, but if I can add something better at the top and just release someone who is not that great a client and let our competitors have a more new business, I'm just as happy. I certainly, I think business development people can hide behind account management as business development, which is, but
yeah,
I have a right wing opinion on this one, I think.
Well, I have a slightly more cynical opinion than yours, and my slightly more cynical opinion is this, which is if you give anybody some facts, they will pervert it to their own particular bent. They're always, so ultimately, here is a fact: it costs on average 5 times more to acquire a customer than it does to retain one. You give somebody who's delusional and wants a place to hide that fact, and they will use it in order to defend their inaction. You give that same fact to somebody who's more proactive, and they'll say, great, okay, so how do we use that to inform how we retain and expand our good clients and go out and get more of the same? It's about mindset and about how you interpret that fact, to be fair. I don't think you're wrong in what you're saying. I think you're absolutely right. But I also think that what it speaks to is a management issue, because fundamentally it's down to the manager to make sure the mindset is in the right place.
I've mentioned manager a few times. Here we go. Danny said something. Hello, Danny, again, mate. Here we go. Can't argue with that. Clear purpose of role is more important than actual role title. And again, you can't fit a clear purpose of a role on a card. The card would be that long, right? It's interesting the number of times you will get a card from someone who is into client acquisition, and he will never say sales on it, because that's the dirty end of the business. But I think, again, clear purpose of the role, again, that's a leadership thing. And there's some great leaders out there. But there's also some leaders who were promoted from being a pretty good salesperson and said, now you're a leader. And they just try and teach them. They work in 2 ways. People who are promoted into a role, they either work in the way they did before because they liked it, or completely the opposite because they didn't. And across an organization, that sort of attitude can really skew a business and hold it back. And a common approach, a common way of working, and a common way of recognizing when an activity is good for the business or not good for the business in an objective way has got to be critical for success. And you can coach. You can coach to that. As a leader, you can coach to say, this is no good. Why do you think it's no good? This is going too slow. How can we accelerate it? This is doing too much. How can we do less and get the same results? And I think without those metrics in place, it's hard to develop a sales force to be rock stars.
I think that's fair. And I think what that speaks to as well is the fact that just because you get given a title like manager doesn't automatically make you a leader. I've known plenty of people who are leaders, they're demonstrably leaders because people follow them, who don't have the title and wouldn't want it, frankly. It's I think clarity of role, clarity of purpose comes from really good, strong management, and actually teaching your managers how to also lead. And most importantly, and I think you just alluded to it and hit the nail on the head, teaching them how to coach for productivity, coach for clarity, coach for mindset. If you're not coaching your people at least a third of your time, if not more than a third of your time, then you're not managing. You're not managing. Coaching is the difference that makes the difference when it comes to management.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yesterday, and you know me with me reports, I do like these reports. McKinsey sent something out yesterday. I saw human capital at work, and there was some great stuff in this, and I shall be doing a video on it later. But one of the things they said here is strengthen. If you can strengthen coaching in an organization, you will make your company far more attractive to the people that are in the company already to stay, and far more attractive to people outside the company, get them to join it. And there was I love a stat or two. In 2021, Gallup survey, 65% of US workers, and they're just like us, just the other end of the pond, 65% of US workers said that learning new skills is an extremely or very important factor in deciding whether to take a new job. And 61% said it was extremely or very important in deciding whether to stay at their current job. And really what the conclusion they're coming to is if you are able to develop your staff and give them great experiences, and get them better at what they do, if you can coach them, you're going to attract better people. You're going to keep the better people. But I think that the real thing here is that I've forgotten the point. I forgot the point I was about to make. I was just reading one of Danny's comments, and I was just agreeing with him in my head.
Yeah, I know exactly which one you're talking about, because I winced when you said the title of the bloody thing, human capital.
I'm with that.
You hear the phrase cannon fodder. It's just it's a terrible phrase.
It is. Coaching has to be based on data. If you haven't got data, it's really hard to have a great coaching conversation because it all becomes very subjective. I'll just put this in here. I think this is really good. Yeah, hate that phrase. We're not capital, despite how we add value. I think it's an Americanism thing, but a very interesting thing as well. I'll put the link. I'll put the link at the bottom of this. 108 pages of pure goodness, and there's some fabulous stuff in there to get your head around. And here we go. Something else is saying 65% want to learn new skills in role, but most recruiters are looking for a match to role requirements. That disconnect is impacting talent acquisition. We need to start looking at hiring for stretch in ability. And absolutely right. And again, this is one of the comments this thing made yesterday. They talked about understanding the potential in people as well as their current knowledge and skills. And nobody ever arrives at your company fully formed because they've never worked for your company before. They've never worked in your organization. They don't know the dynamic. And there's little nuances in every company. So they never come fully formed. So a real educational and learning environment is very important. And McKinsey have recognized that this is important. And it's like you filter in the stuff you agree with and filter out the stuff that you don't. I'm looking through this McKinsey report going, oh, I agree with that. I definitely agree with that. But yeah, because I'm a training junkie, any sort of training, learning, even when I was in corporate, if I had an opportunity to learn something new, which would, my view, make me more valuable to the company or to my next job, I would grab hold of it with both hands. Mm-hmm. Having said that, not everybody is like that, and it doesn't make them bad. But recognizing the potential opportunities, potential for someone when they join the company early on, and building a track for them to run at, to follow, to make them successful. I think is where that dynamic changes when they join the company. Do we want to stay? And we can make people stay like that. Matthew.
We're in danger of getting right into the weeds here, but you're into one of my favorite areas, which is around mindset and a learning mindset, a growth mindset. And for anybody who hasn't read Mindset by Carol Dweck, if you haven't, you absolutely should. It's a classic of its type, and it describes beautifully the difference between a fixed and a growth mindset. And a fixed mindset and a growth mindset doesn't just mean one type of mindset is about I want to grow and another one is I don't want to grow. It's not as simplistic as that. But
I think we should. I'm going to pull you up on that one. Not pull you up. I'm going to stop you because we've got 5 minutes left, and we should actually nail that down as a subject because we can talk about this for hours, can't we?
I think we probably can do. I just wanted to make a very, very quick point, which is that if you've got a learning bent, a learning mindset, and you do want to grow, then that actually does indicate there's a good chance that you are the sort of person who's a potential A player for the business. That's all I was going to say.
And I think it's a great subject for us to talk about. So, what is your budget for sale? We've got a couple of minutes to just go back to this. And what should we be putting in a budget for sale? What metrics should we put in? Because that's why all these people are listening to us now. Seem to have had a good response actually. So what is the budget for the sale? Oh, here we go. There's Mark. Mark, I like this. All about the onboarding process and sticking to it to keep staff engaged, feeling valued, and believe that they can grow. Absolutely. Absolutely. We'll have to take that as a different subject. There's plenty in there. So what is your budget for a sale? What conclusions can we come from? How do we define budget? How strictly should we follow it? Should we not even bother? Or do we just let people just go and do their sales stuff because they're experienced?
So I think the key thing is that it should be a metric. That actually don't accept as a manager the slightly fluffy excuses that it's hard to work out, because it's not hard to work out. You know what your sales and marketing costs are. You know what your average value of a customer is. So you know what your cost of client acquisition is. Once you know that and you can work out what the average lifetime value of a customer is, you can work it out. It's not complicated. If it's not on your dashboard, it bloody well should be, along with your sales cycle and the length of sales cycle, because that's a key indicator for your cash flow. And it's a key part of the thing that you should be managing for your cash flow. But drive into that, what that means in terms of your customer experience, your client experience. Are you actually holding on to things you shouldn't be holding on to? Drive that back through into what kinds of people are we even pursuing? What kind of stuff have we got in this pipeline? How much of it is genuinely deliverable? And of that's genuinely deliverable, how much of it do we actually want? Because are these customers, these potential customers, even in that kind of space where they are profitable? If you're not working that out, then the chances are you're going to get a few, to use your phrase from earlier, on dogs with fleas. And that's not great for your business. It's not great for your reputation. And it certainly means you're likely to get some high maintenance, low value clients on your roster, which means that actually you're probably going to be compromising your service levels somewhere along the line, because they're going to be energy sapping for your business. So if you want to run your business in a really smart way, then you've got a budget for this stuff. If you're happy to just kind of keep on being haphazard and doing the we have approach, wing it, hope and pray, crack on.
I mean, what I particularly like about this, and because I come from manufacturing, automation, engineering, and for me is, if we set a bunch of metrics to get to a successful sale, not only do we know when we're running over and it's not working, we get a greater insight in how to make this whole process more efficient, continuous improvement. If we can get to a point where a prospect decides that it makes sense for us, makes sense for them to work with us, if we can get them to that point earlier, and there's a whole bunch of things we can bring to that party, mean that we can do more of the right stuff consistently, and not having the metrics in there is a real problem. And certainly, when I was running sales teams, I'd look at them and go, and we used to do pretty rudimentary. How many visits have we got? We didn't worry about how many miles they travelled, and we should have done, especially now with the cost of fuel and the time you spend polishing a seat on the M1, watching the car in front do nothing as well. And I think that extra efficiency is a real bonus to a business. Oh, Mark, here we go. Mark's just said something before we go. Let's see what we got. Budgets are important to set targets and KPI. You need to know to plan. You need to know to plan. Otherwise, failures are good. Budgets are important to set targets and KPI. You need to know to plan. Otherwise, failures are good. I think I know what you're saying there, and I agree. This is great stuff. So Matthew, last word. How do we get hold of you, Matthew?
This week, don't, because I'm going back to bed as soon as we finish this. But yeah, no. Normally, mdh@sandler.com, 07715269724.
Brilliant. And my name's Roy Johnson. Email roy.johnson@sandler.com. And my number is 07-867-525-868. If you want to get into the weeds about sales, how to improve processes, how to be more effective, call either of us anytime. This is what we do for a living. I hope this was of great value. Matthew, thank you for coming along from your deathbed. Go back to your deathbed now. Really appreciate it. We'll see you next week, and we'll work out a subject and put something up and see if it makes sense. Take care. Have a great week, and toodles.
Indeed. Goodbye from him.
All right. Goodbye from him. Goodbye. No, that way. Goodbye.
Yeah.